Hello, humans. Sorry we're late. No, I'm not.
I was going to say, I'm not.
I was venting.
I had
Oh, what about?
I had mariachis outside my window at 9:30 this morning. I don't give a fuck about anything anymore.
Did I tell you how sad it was that my microphone wasn't working while I was working on the mermaid, like live streaming by myself the other day? Yeah.
Yeah.
About my deep thoughts. Any hoozles.
Any hoozles. So, yeah, last time we had a technological failure, right at the start of the verse at the end of the chapter.
Elbereth Gilthoniel?
Yeah.
Silivrin Penamiriel o Menelaglar Elenath, Nasherid Palandiriel o Galeth Remen Anorath Fanuilus le Linathon, Nef Air si Nef Aira. Frodo halted for a moment, looking back. Elrond was in his chair, and the fire was on his face like summer light upon the trees. Near him sat the Lady Arwen. To his surprise, Frodo saw that Aragorn stood beside her. His dark cloak was thrown back, and he seemed to be clad in elven mail, and a star shone on his breast. Who wears armor to a party?
Aragorn. This is my boyfriend, Aragorn. Sorry, this is my boyfriend, Estelle. Don't mind the armor. He wears it everywhere.
Not even to bed. Don't ask. They spoke together, and then suddenly it seemed to Frodo that Arwen turned towards him, and the light of her eyes fell on him from afar and pierced his heart. He stood still, enchanted, while the sweet syllables of the elvish song fell like clear jewels of blended word and melody. "It is a song to Elbereth," said Bilbo. "They will sing that and other songs of the Blessed Realm many times tonight. Come on." He led Frodo back to his own little room. It opened onto the gardens and looked south across the ravine of the Bruinen. There they sat for some while, looking through the window at the bright stars above the steep climbing woods and talking softly. They spoke no more of the small news of the Shire far away, nor of the dark shadows and perils that encompassed them, but of the fair things they had seen in the world together, of the elves, of the stars, of trees, and the gentle fall of the bright year in the woods. At last there came a knock on the door. "Begging your pardon," said Sam, putting in his head, "but I was just wondering if you would be wanting anything." "And begging yours, Sam Gamgee," replied Bilbo. "I guess you mean that it is time your master went to bed." "Well, sir, there is a council early tomorrow, I hear, and he only got up today for the first time." "Quite right, Sam," laughed Bilbo. "You can trot off and tell Gandalf that he has gone to bed. Good night, Frodo. Bless me, but it has been good to see you again. There are no folk like hobbits, after all, for a real good talk. I am getting very old, and I begin to wonder if I should ever live to see your chapters of our story. Good night. I'll take a walk, I think, and look at the stars of Elbereth in the garden. Sleep well." I need to blow my nose. Somewhere there are tissues. One last tissue. Here's a win, and I really should focus on those, honestly. I decided to read The Masqueraders to the kiddos because we've run out of Pratchett. I don't want to read Gaiman aloud. I only have one Tom Holt I'm willing to read to them, and who else have we read? We've read some Douglas Adams, but have we? Maybe not yet. Anyway, I decided to read them The Masqueraders. And yesterday, because we're approaching the end, asked if we have any more of this author because he would really like to hear some more. I was like, yes!
Yay!
Win! I'm thinking I gave them, do they want more Georgian or do they want some Regency? Because that would be either these old shades or the Grand Sophie, and they chose more Georgian. So I don't know how comfortable I'm going to be reading to them how happy Leonie is to be owned and all that stuff. But if I explain that this is one of the healthier fictional dom sub relationships, they might.
I mean, I think with any hair, it's important to, discuss some of the implications and the fact that she was writing of her time and she had some very noticeable prejudices. The Grand Sophie has that terrible anti-Semitic character.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's awful. So it's just important to be cognizant of that. Like, we can still enjoy what she was good at, but not condone her, like her insistence that you can tell whether or not someone is a farmer by their hands, all that stuff. And then as far as dom sub relationships, I mean, there's much. I don't know if I would say it's one of the healthier ones. It's not unhealthy, but I think there's more fiction out there that explores that than I think
than I have read.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not your genre.
It is not my genre, but I have dabbled in it a bit and found that you really have to pick your authors, because some people confuse dom sub with actual abuse.
Some people do.
In fact, the reason I read These Old Shades was because somebody had said this is an abusive relationship, and I was like, hold the phone, go back and reread. No, there's no coercion here. There's no Stockholm syndrome. There's an odd couple, certainly, but...
Well, also, did you know that Stockholm syndrome is not a real thing?
That's a relief. Who discovered this?
Well, it's one of those things where it's like it's one of those. So the guy who named Stockholm syndrome named it for a woman. So he was a police psychologist, like trying to do a hostage negotiation with a bunch of bank robbers and being a total dick. And the woman that was their hostage wouldn't talk to him anymore because he was such a dick that she was like, this guy's going to get me killed. Give me someone else. Like, they're not threatening me, but this guy is.
Yeah.
So I'm not talking to him anymore. And so he wrote a paper saying that the only reason she would ever reject his expert help and say that the bank robbers were less shitty than him is that she must have been like psychologically in love with them. And she I think is still alive and has always said like, fucking no, he was just an asshole. So there you go. So that's the basis of the entire phenomenon of Stockholm syndrome, is this one dude who didn't like it that a woman wouldn't recognize his expertise. And
shit.
Huh?
Because he was being a shit.
Because he was being a shit and actually did not have any expertise. Yeah. So it's not a real thing.
Interesting. Okay. I dig that. Oh boy, chapter 2, The Council of Elrond. Next day, Frodo woke early, feeling refreshed and well. He walked along the terraces above the loud flowing Bruinen and watched the pale, cool sun rise above the far mountains and shine down, slanting through the thin silver mist. The dew upon the yellow leaves was glimmering, and the woven nets of gossamer twinkled on every bush. Sam walked beside him, saying nothing, but sniffing the air and looking every now and again with wonder in his eyes at the great heights in the east. The snow was white upon their peaks. On a seat cut in the stone beside a turn in the path, they came upon Gandalf and Bilbo deep in talk. "Hello, good morning," said Bilbo. "Feel ready for the great council?" "I feel ready for anything," answered Frodo. "But most of all, I should like to go walking today and explore the valley. I should like to get into those pine woods up there." He pointed away far up the side of Rivendell to the north. You may have a chance later, said Gandalf, but we cannot make any plans yet. There is much to hear and decide today. Suddenly, as they were talking, a single clear bell rang out. That is the warning bell for the Council of Elrond. Well should we be warned, cried Gandalf. Come along now. Both you and Bilbo are wanted. Frodo and Bilbo followed the wizard quickly along the winding path back to the house. Behind them, uninvited and for the moment forgotten, trotted Sam. Gandalf led them to the porch where Frodo had found his friends the evening before. The light of the clear autumn morning was now glowing in the valley. The noise of bubbling waters came up from the foaming riverbed. Birds were singing, and a wholesome peace lay on the land. To Frodo, his dangerous flight and the rumors of the darkness growing in the world outside already seemed only the memories of a troubled dream. But the faces that were turned to meet them as they entered were grave. Elrond was there, and several others were seated in silence about him. Frodo saw Glorfindel and Gloin, and in a corner alone Strider was sitting, clad in his old travel-worn clothes again. Elrond drew Frodo to a seat by his side and presented him to the company, saying, Here, my friends, is the Hobbit, Frodo, son of Drogo. Few have ever come hither through greater peril or on an errand more urgent. He then pointed out and named those whom Frodo had not met before. There was a younger dwarf at Gloin's side, his son, Gimli. Yay!
Yay!
Beside Glorfindel, there were several other counselors of Elrond's household, of whom Erestor was the chief. We shall never see him again. And with him was Galdor, an elf from the Grey Havens, who had come on an errand from Círdan, the shipwright. There was also an elf clad in green and brown, Legolas, a messenger from his father Thranduil, the king of the elves of northern Mirkwood. And seated a little apart was a tall man with a fair and noble face, dark-haired and grey-eyed, proud and stern of glance. He was cloaked and booted as if for a journey on horseback, and indeed, though his garments were rich and his cloak was lined with fur, they were stained with long travel. He had a collar of silver in which a single white stone was set. His locks were shorn about his shoulders. On a baldric he wore a great horn tipped with silver that now was laid upon his knees. He gazed at Frodo and Bilbo with sudden wonder. Here, said Elrond, turning to Gandalf, is Boromir, a man from the south. He arrived in the grey morning and seeks for counsel. I have bidden him to be present, for here his questions will be answered. Not all that was spoken and debated in the council need now be told. Much was said of events in the world outside, especially in the south and in the wide lands east of the mountains. Of these things Frodo had already heard many rumors, but the tale of Gloin was new to him, and when the dwarf spoke he listened attentively. It appeared that amid the splendor of their works of hand, the hearts of the dwarfs of the Lonely Mountain were troubled.
Ain't that always the way?
Yep. It is now many years ago, said Gloin, that a shadow of disquiet fell upon our people. Whence it came we did not at first perceive. Words began to be whispered in secret. It was said that we were hemmed in a narrow place, and that greater wealth and splendor would be found in a wider world. How quickly we forget when we've been outcasts and refugees. I got my homeland back. It's not big enough.
Well, I mean, Sauron was involved. I don't think that they would have forgotten that quickly on their own.
Exactly. Some spoke of Moria, the mighty works of our fathers that are called in our own tongue Khazad-dûm. And they declared that now at last we had the power and numbers to return. Gloin sighed. Moria, Moria. wonder of the northern world. Too deep we delved there and woke the nameless fear. Long have its vast mansions lain empty since the children of Durin fled. But now we spoke of it again with longing, and yet with dread, for no dwarf has dared to pass the doors of Khazad-dûm for many lives of kings, save Thror only, and he perished. At last, however, Balin listened to the whispers and resolved to go, and though Dane did not give leave willingly, he took with him Ori and Oin and many of our folk, and they went away south. That was nigh on 30 years ago. For a while we had news, and it seemed good. Messages reported that Moria had been entered and a great work begun there. Then there was silence, and no word has ever come from Moria since. And about a year ago a messenger came to Dane, but not from Moria, from Mordor. A horseman in the night who called Dane to his gate. The Lord Sauron the Great, so he said, wished for our friendship. Rings he would give for it, such as he gave of old. And he asked urgently concerning hobbits, of what kind they were and where they dwelt. For Sauron knows, said he, that one of these was known to you on a time. At this we were greatly troubled, and we gave no answer. And then his fell voice was lowered, and he would have sweetened it if he could. As a small token only of your friendship, Sauron asks this, he said, that you should find this thief, such was his word, and get from him, willing or no, a little ring, the least of rings that once he stole. It is but a trifle that Sauron fancies, and an earnest of your goodwill. Find it, and 3 rings that the dwarf sires possessed of old shall be returned to you, and the realm of Moria shall be yours forever. Find only news of the thief, whether he still lives, and where, and you shall have great reward and lasting friendship from the Lord. Refuse, and things will not seem so well. Do you refuse? At that his breath came like the hiss of snakes, and all who stood by shuddered. But Dane said, I say neither yea nor nay. I must consider this message and what it means under its fair cloak. Consider well, but not too long, said he. The time of my thought is my own to spend, answered Dane. For the present, said he, and rode into the darkness. Heavy have the hearts of our chieftains been since that night. We needed not the fell voice of the messenger to warn us that his words held both menace and deceit, for we knew already that the power that has re-entered Mordor has not changed, and ever it betrayed us of old. Twice the messenger has returned and has gone unanswered. The third and last time, so he says, is soon to come, before the ending of the year. And so I have been sent at last by Dane to warn Bilbo that he is sought by the enemy, and to learn, if may be, why he desires this ring, this least of rings. Also we crave the advice of Elrond, for the shadow grows and draws nearer. We discover that messengers have come also to King Brand in Dale, and that he is afraid. We fear that he may yield. Already war is gathering on his eastern borders. If we make no answer, the enemy may move men of his rule to assail King Brand and Dane also. You have done well to come, said Elrond. You will hear today all that you need in order to understand the purposes of the enemy. There is naught that you can do, other than to resist, with hope or without it. But you do not stand alone. You will learn that your trouble is but part of the trouble of all the Western world. The ring. What shall we do with the ring? The least of rings, the trifle that Sauron fancies. That is the doom that we must deem. I haven't deemed a doom in a long time.
Look, it's tough to find a good doom to deem. And
But
you
when I
can't,
find it, I'll deem it.
I mean, just, you can't deem your doom in public. That's all I'm saying.
6 feet distance while you're deeming your doom. Okay. Actually, the troubles of Middle Earth always make me feel better about whatever I happen to be going through. And lines like that, like, no, what you're going through, everybody's going through. It's okay. It's like, thank you, Elrond. I needed to hear that. Oh. Doom, deem, doom, doom, deem.
Ding,
That,
ding.
doom, deem. That is the purpose for which you are called hither. Called, I say, though I have not called you to me, strangers from distant lands. You have come and are here met in this very nick of time, by chance as it may seem. Yet it is not so. Believe rather that it is so ordered that we who sit here, and none others, must now find counsel for the peril of the world. Now, therefore, things shall be openly spoken that have been hidden from all but a few until this day. And first, so that all may understand what is the peril, the tale of the ring shall be told from the beginning even to this present. And I will begin that tale, though others shall end it. Then all listened while Elrond in his clear voice spoke of Sauron and the rings of power and their forging in the second age of the world long ago. A part of his tale was known to some there, but the full tale to none, and many eyes were turned to Elrond in fear and wonder as he told of the elven smiths of Eregion and their friendship with Moria and their eagerness for knowledge by which Sauron ensnared them. For in that time he was not yet evil to behold, and they received his aid and grew mighty in craft, whereas he learned all their secrets and betrayed them, and forged secretly in the mountain of fire the one ring to be their master. But Celebrimbor was aware of him, and hid the three which he had made. And there was war, and the land was laid waste, and the gate of Moria was shut. Then through all the years that followed he traced the ring. But since that history is elsewhere recounted, even as Elrond himself set it down in his books of lore, it is not here recalled. For it is a long tale, full of deeds great and terrible. And briefly though Elrond spoke, the sun rode up the sky, and the morning was passing ere he ceased. Of Númenor he spoke, its glory and its fall, and the return of the kings of men to Middle-earth out of the deeps of the sea, borne upon the wings of storm. Then Elendil the Tall and his mighty sons, Isildur and Anarion, became great lords, and the North Realm they made in Arnor, and the South Realm in Gondor, above the mouths of Anduin. But Sauron of Mordor assailed them, and they made the last alliance of elves and men, and the hosts of Gil-galad and Elendil were mustered in Arnor. Thereupon Elrond paused a while and sighed. I remember well the splendor of their banners, he said. It recalled to me the glory of the elder days and the hosts of Beleriand. So many great princes and captains were assembled, and yet not so many, nor so fair, as when Thangorodrim was broken, and the elves deemed that evil was ended forever, and it was not so. You remember, said Frodo, speaking his thought aloud in his astonishment. But I thought, he stammered as Elrond turned towards him, I thought that the fall of Gil-galad was a long age ago. So it was indeed, answered Elrond gravely. But my memory reaches back even to the elder days. Eärendil was my sire, who was born in Gondolin before its fall, and my mother was Elwing, daughter of Dior, son of Luthien of Doriath. I have seen 3 ages in the west of the world, and many defeats and many fruitless victories. That's a mood. I was the herald of Gil-galad and marched with his host. I was at the Battle of Dagorlad before the Black Gate of Moria, where we had the mastery. For the spear of Gil-galad and the sword of Elendil, Eglos and Narsil, none could withstand. I beheld the last combat on the slopes of Orodruin, where Gil-galad died and Elendil fell and Narsil broke beneath him. But Sauron himself was overthrown, and Isildur cut the ring from his hand with the hilt shard of his father's sword, and took it for his own. At this, the stranger Boromir broke in. "So that is what became of the ring," he cried. "If ever such a tale was told in the south, it has long been forgotten. I have heard of the great ring of him that we do not name." You're welcome, J.K. Rowling. "But we believed that it perished from the world in the ruin of his first realm." Why are you sighing?
Oh, I'm not. I'm yawning.
Oh, okay. "Isildur took it. That is tidings indeed." "Alas, yes," said Elrond. "Isildur took it as should not have been. It should have been cast then into Orodruin's fire nigh at hand where it was made. But few marked what Isildur did. He alone stood by his father in that last mortal contest, and by Gil-galad only Círdan stood, and I. But Isildur would not listen to our counsel. Círdan fascinates me. I would love to read more about Círdan. Leave a comment if you know where I can find out more about this guy, because he's a bearded elf who lives at the Havens and is in every story. He's like Deus Ex Machina kind of guy, and I think he's awesome.
Círdan's just like, what is it, the observer from Fringe? He's just kind of always there, like,
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "Hey, Círdan, what's your deal?" And he's like, don't worry about it.
Don't look at me. I'm just here. Building boats, sending my friends back to the Blessed Realm, giving people shit they need, advice, rings, whatever.
Just Círdan stuff.
Círdan stuff. The other figure that I would absolutely love to hear more about, because he's only mentioned once that I could find so far, is Malbeth the Seer. I don't know what era he lives in. I don't know if he's elvish or human, but he's the one who said something. I think he's the one who said that the Witch King would not die by the hand of man. But I might be wrong.
I mean, it sounds right to me.
Right? But now I'm thinking, you know what? I need to check the Silmarillion. Don't quote me on that one, guys. I'm probably wrong. But he's mentioned, and he's a seer, and I'm like, cool.
By the way, I'm out of yarn, so I'm gonna do this little like color by numbers game on my phone. So if I'm staring at my phone, that's why I am listening.
All right. I believe you. But Isildur would not listen to our counsel. "This I will have as were-gild for my father and my brother," he said. "And therefore, whether we would or no, he took it to treasure it. But soon he was betrayed by it to his death, and so it is named in the north Isildur's Bane. Yet death, maybe, was better than what else might have befallen him. Only to the north did these tidings come, and only to a few. Small wonder it is that you have not heard them, Boromir. For the ruin of the Gladden fields where Isildur perished, from the ruin of the Gladden fields where Isildur perished, 3 men only came ever back over the mountains after long wandering. One of these was Otar, the esquire of Isildur, who bore the shards of the sword of Elendil, and he brought them to Valandil, the heir of Isildur, who, being but a child, had remained here in Rivendell. But Narsil was broken, and its light extinguished, and it has not yet been forged again. Fruitless yet. Fruitless did I call the victory of the last alliance? Not wholly so, yet it did not achieve its end. Sauron was diminished, but not destroyed. His ring was lost, but not unmade. The dark tower was broken, but its foundations were not removed, for they were made with the power of the ring. And while it remains, they will endure. Many elves and many mighty men, and many of their friends who were neither elves nor men. What?
It would have to be dwarves. It wasn't hobbits.
Had perished in the war. Or maybe their friends are the less mighty men.
I suppose.
Anarion was slain, and Isildur was slain, and Gil-galad and Elendil were no more. Never again shall there be any such league of elves and men, for men multiply, and the firstborn decrease, and the two kindreds are estranged. And ever since that day the race of Numenor has decayed, and the span of their years has lessened. In the north, after the war and the slaughter of the Gladden fields, the men of Westerness were diminished, and their city of Anuminus beside Lake Evendim fell into ruin, and the heirs of Elendil removed and dwelt at Fornost on the high north downs, and that now too is desolate. Men call it Dead Man's Dyke, and they fear to tread there. For the folk of Arnor dwindled, and their foes devoured them, and their lordship passed, leaving only green mounds in the grassy hills. We've been there.
Haven't we just?
In the south, the realm of Gondor long endured, and for a while its splendor grew, recalling somewhat of the might of Numenor ere it fell. High towers that people built, and strong places and havens of many ships, and the winged crown of the kings of men was held in awe by folk of many tongues. The chief city was Osgiliath, citadel of the stars, through the midst of which the river flowed. And Minas Ithil they built, tower of the rising moon, eastward upon a shoulder of the mountains of shadow. And westward at the feet of the white mountains, Minas Anor they made, tower of the setting sun. There in the courts of the king grew a white tree from the seed of that tree which Isildur brought over the deep waters, and the seed of that tree before came from Eressëa, and before that out of the uttermost west in the day before days when the world was young. A neat story that I found in the Silmarillion the other day. The last king of Numenor was very, very vain and very, very rich and really obsessed with immortality.
Mm-hmm.
And he waged war on Sauron, and Sauron was like, dude, I give up. You're fucking amazing. And he took him back as a prisoner, and he ended up becoming like the High Vizier counselor person. Sauron wormed his way up in the ranks.
Good job, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, and there was a holy place at the top of the island where the white tree grew. And Sauron had been the right hand of the king for a little while before he forbade anyone to go to the glade of the white tree, and started making noises about destroying it, utterly yanking it up and burning it to show the Valar who's boss, right? So Isildur snuck past guards and got a fruit from the tree and like fought his way the fuck out of there, and was stabbed with a poison dagger or some shit before he staggered into his own home with his stolen fruit and went into a coma. And they were like, oh my god, this was fucking heroic, because it's like the next day Sauron had the tree burned.
Mm-hmm.
So he stayed in a coma while they planted the fruit, and it sprouted. And the day that the sprout bore blossoms was the day Isildur woke up. And that was the sprout that they brought across the water when the island finally fell.
Dang.
Right? Isildur was really, really cool right up until he wasn't anymore.
You know, the ring does terrible things to people.
It does. But in the wearing of the swift years of Middle-earth, the line of Meneldil, son of Anarion, failed, and the tree withered. The blood of the Númenóreans became mingled with that of lesser men.
Yeah, because you can't keep marrying your cousins or you end up the Habsburgs. Mingling your blood with the lesser men is actually a good idea.
Do it. Yep. Then the watch upon the walls of Mordor slept, and dark things crept back to Gorgoroth. And on a time evil things came forth, and they took Minas Ithil and abode in it, and they made it into a place of dread. It is called Minas Morgul, the Tower of Sorcery. Then Minas Anor was named anew Minas Tirith, the Tower of God, and these two cities were ever at war. But Osgiliath, which lay between, was deserted, and in its ruins shadows walked. So it has been for many lives of men. But the lords of Minas Tirith still fight on, defying our enemies, and keeping the passage of the river from Argonath to the sea. And now that part of the tale that I shall tell is drawn to its close. For in the days of Isildur, the ruling ring passed out of all knowledge, and the three were released from its dominion. But now in this latter day they are in peril once more, for to our sorrow the one has been found. Others shall speak of its finding, for in that I played small part. He ceased, but at once Boromir stood up, tall and proud, before them. Give me leave, Master Elrond, said he, first to say more of Gondor, for verily from the land of Gondor I am come. And it would be well for all to know what passes there. There's a lot of shade about to be thrown. I fucking love this.
So much shade.
For few, I deem, know of our deeds, and therefore guess little of their peril if we should fail at last. Believe not that in the land of Gondor the blood of Numenor is spent, nor all its pride and dignity forgotten. By our valor the wild folk of the east are still restrained, the terror of Morgul kept at bay, and thus alone are peace and freedom maintained in the lands behind us, bulwark of the west. But if the passages of the river should be won, what then? Yet that hour may be is not now far away. The nameless enemy has arisen again. Smoke rises once more from Orad Ruin, that we call Mount Doom. The power of the Black Land grows, and we are hard beset. When the enemy returned, our folk were driven from Ithilien, our fair domain east of the river, though we kept a foothold there, and strength of arms. But this very year, in the days of June, sudden war came upon us out of Mordor, and we were swept away. We were outnumbered, for Mordor has allied itself with the Easterlings, and the cruel Haradrim, whatever. But it was not by numbers that we were defeated. Power was there that we have not felt before. Some said that it could be seen, like a great black horseman, a dark shadow under the moon. Wherever he came, a madness filled our foes, but fear fell on our boldest, so that horse and man gave way and fled. Only a remnant of our eastern force came back, destroying the last bridge that still stood amid the ruins of Osgiliath. I was in the company that held the bridge until it was cast down behind us. 4 only were saved by swimming, my brother and myself, and 2 others. But still we fight on, holding all the west shores of Anduin.
It's not important who the other 2 were.
You can guess that forever. I'm sure Tolkien wrote it down somewhere.
I just think it's funny because it's like, it was me and my brother and 2 other guys. It doesn't matter who. We don't care. Like,
yeah, don't worry about them. And one of them's Baragond. That'd be cool.
That would be cool.
Except he's a Citadel guard. He wouldn't be out on the fringes. Or, yeah, whatever.
Well, so much for that idea. It was a thought.
It was such a good thought. I wanted those other 2 men to have names. Do. But still we fight on, holding all the west shores of Anduin, and those who shelter behind us give us praise, if ever they hear our name. Much praise, but little help.
So they're basically the essential workers of the War of the Ring.
That's what they think. Aragorn's about to put him in his place. Like, we are the only reason that evil does not triumph. And Aragorn's like, really? Really? The only reason? Like,
Bitch, please.
bitch, please. Like, you're a reason. I'll give you that. Like, only from Rohan now will any men ride to us when we call. In this evil hour I have come on an errand over many dangerous leagues to Elrond. 110 days I have journeyed, all alone. Not that I want praise for that or anything. But I do not seek allies in war. The might of Elrond is in wisdom, not in weapons, it is said. I come to ask for counsel and the unraveling of hard words. For on the eve of the sudden assault, a dream came to my brother in a troubled sleep, and afterwards a like dream came oft to him again, and once to me. And that's when we started taking it seriously. In that dream I thought the eastern sky grew dark, and there was a growing thunder. But in the west a pale light lingered, and out of it I heard a voice, remote but clear, crying, "Seek for the sword that was broken, in Imladris it dwells. There shall be counsels taken stronger than Morgul spells. There shall be shown the token that doom is close at hand, near at hand, for Isildur's bane shall waken, and the halfling forth shall stand." Of these words we could understand little, and we spoke to our father, Denethor, lord of Minas Tirith, wise in the lore of Gondor. This only would he say, that Imladris was of old the name among the elves of a far northern dale where Elrond the half-elven dwelt, greatest of lore masters. Therefore my brother, seeing how desperate was our need, was eager to heed the dream and seek for Imladris. But since the way was full of doubt and danger, I took the journey upon myself.
There's a whole thing to be said about how things would have gone if Faramir instead of Boromir went to fucking Rivendell.
Right? Yeah. I want to read that fanfic if it's well done. It would probably be a lot less conflicty.
There would be less dick measuring.
A whole lot less. Do-do-do-do. Loath was my father to give me leave, and long have I wandered by roads forgotten, seeking the house of Elrond, of which many had heard, but few knew where it lay. And here in the house of Elrond more shall be made clear to you, said Aragorn, standing up. He cast his sword upon the table that stood before Elrond, and the blade was in 2 pieces. Here is the sword that was broken, he said. And who are you? What have you to do with Minas Tirith? Asked Boromir, looking in wonder at the lean face of the ranger and his weather-stained cloak. He is Aragorn, son of Arathorn, said Elrond, and he is descended through many fathers from Isildur, Elendil's son of Minas Ithil. He is the chief of the Dunedain of the north, and few are now left of that folk. Then it belongs to you, and not to me at all, cried Frodo in amazement, springing to his feet, as if he expected the ring to be demanded at once.
Stop trying to give the ring to people, Frodo.
No. Just because Isildur took it and died doesn't make it a belonging of his descendants.
I mean, let's talk to the museums of the Western world about that.
It does not belong to either of us, said Aragorn, but it has been ordained that you should hold it for a while. Bring out the ring, Frodo, said Gandalf solemnly. The time has come. Hold it up, and then Boromir will understand the remainder of his riddle. Do you want to keep going?
No, I'm good. I'm sleepy. I need to take a nap because of the mariachis. I realize I've only been awake for like 2 hours, but I'm tired.
All right. Well, we're at 156. We've got 2 pages till the next gap.
Well, we should probably pause here then.
Okay. I need to go check and see if it really was Malbeth the Seer who foresaw, who did the not by the hand of man. I think maybe. I'll get back to you on that in a couple of days.
Sounds like a plan.
And we've got like 4 readings to go before we're through the damn council, so.
Yeah, council's gonna last for a while.
Council's so long.
I named this episode Quite a Lot of Talking in Rivendell.
Robin tries accents. All right. Best of luck to everyone in quarantine. I love you all. I would hug every one of you if I could. And especially you. I miss you.
Oh, I miss you too.
Got your birthday present over here. And like, it's been done for 3 months. I didn't actually forget it the way I did with Emily's present.
Well, next time I see you, I will have it, and that will be delightful.
Yep. Well.
There. I'm really bad at making hearts with my hands. There we go.
Cuidado.
Cuidados. I love you.
Love you too. See you in a couple days.
Yep.